What's up, guys? It's Josh here, and today on Real Geeks, we're going to be looking at the latest Marvel Studios film, Avengers: Age of Ultron. Avengers: Age of Ultron is rated PG-13, and the only things you should really know about the film is that there are some moments of mild language, namely these words here, as well as some sci-fi action violence, but it's nothing that you haven't seen in the Marvel Studios films before. This is sci-fi, but it's very light fantasy action. There's nothing about it that is gory or anything that you wouldn't find in any of the other Marvel films. Our heroes are fighting robots, so you do get to see robots being ripped apart. There are a few moments with some mild blood, characters that get hit and shot and stuff like that, but it's nothing over-the-top gory. Going into Avengers: Age of Ultron, there was a lot of hype surrounding this film, almost too much hype in my opinion. Joss Whedon had quite the challenge in front of him. He not only had to end Phase 2 with Avengers: Age of Ultron, I know this really is the capper on Phase 2. Also introduce us, warm us up for elements of Phase 3, and also make an exciting, entertaining Phase 2 movie all in one package. And that is quite the tall glass, if you ask me. And for the most part, Whedon succeeds. Avengers: Age of Ultron finds our heroes teamed up once again as the Avengers, fighting off against the evil Ultron, played here by James Spader. And you know, the origins of Ultron I'm not going to get into in case you haven't already seen the film, although I'd be very surprised if you haven't and you're interested in watching this review. And it's basically the team once again having to save the world from another threat, this time not coming from space, but coming from Earth. The good things about Avengers: Age of Ultron is the exciting, over-the-top comic book action. I feel like with each addition to the MCU, the filmmakers get a little bit more confident in how over-the-top they can take their action scenes, and it really works here. There's a lot of moments that you could freeze frame when this comes out on Blu-ray, and it would look like it was on the page of a comic book. Just beautifully orchestrated action that is very fun to watch and easy to follow. There's also plenty of great character development in Age of Ultron, namely from the likes of Hawkeye, Black Widow, Hulk, and the twins, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, the two new additions to the film. These characters are really our main focus here. All of the other Avengers do get fan service, but I feel like the crux of the plot is centered around the Avengers that I named, and they're done very well. In fact, I would say for me personally, Hawkeye is definitely the best element of the story. The things that Whedon does to flesh out his character are very interesting, and they're done in a way that make you care about Hawkeye without him being, you know, any more powerful or, you know, any more of a threat or anything like that. He's not, you know, souped up Hawkeye. He doesn't have, you know, Hulk Buster armor or anything crazy like that. And yet he becomes a more interesting character to watch. So I really appreciated that about Age of Ultron. The film also has a great sense of humor, particularly in the beginning. And what's great about the humor is that it's able to be funny without getting in the way of the plot. I feel like a lot of Marvel films kind of struggle with this. They have plenty of jokes and laughs, but they sacrifice the plot, and that's not the case here. There's plenty of laughs to be had, plenty of mild chuckles. You're not gonna be on the floor dying of laughter, but it is a very funny film, and the characters' banter is just elevated from what we saw in the first film. You know, the first Avengers was about getting the team together. Now, in the second one, we have the team together. They know each other. They're comfortable with one another. And so their banter's a little bit more nuanced. It's a little bit more comfortable. It's a little bit more subtle. So I really did enjoy that aspect. That being said, is the film perfect? Absolutely not. I don't think we get perfect films every year, and I think Age of Ultron does suffer from plenty. It's all very mild. I think if you want to get nitpicky like a lot of fanboys do, then there are plenty of things of issue to be had with the film. But for the most part, the cons are very mild and as follows. At times during the film, there were plenty of interesting cuts and what I would call sloppy editing. Kind of jumping from thing to thing without really being set up to. And it kind of creates jarbled moments where it's kind of like, okay, I'm following this, and then now I'm confused because we're over here in a couple seconds. And it definitely feels like this theatrical cut is not Whedon's original vision. He has come out and said that his original cut of the film was about 3.5 hours long. And to kind of, illustrate that, just watch this movie and I think you'll see what he means. It's very evident that there were more elements that were meant to be in the plot. Another con that I would say that kind of bugged me was Ultron himself. Now, James Spader does a good job in the role, the lines that he's given to deliver. He does a good job with what he's given. That being said, Ultron honestly wasn't what I think myself or many fans were expecting, at least from the marketing, which Disney does have control over. It's not like some trailer house kind of made him their, to be some wicked guy. I just think it was bad advertising. Ultron is made to look like this malevolent, evil guy that's just bent on destruction of humanity, and we really don't get that here. I mean, we're told that that's what he wants to do. We're told that human extinction is part of his plan, but honestly, he's just a robotic version of Tony Stark, and if Tony Stark was sarcastic and, to the 10th degree, even more so than he is, and I feel like that's not really that interesting because honestly, it felt like at times I was watching a robotic version of Loki. Not that Loki's bad, but I think myself and a lot of the fans were expecting a villain that was actually villainous and was just a little bit more straightforward in how evil he was. It's kind of sad to say that that would be refreshing to see on screen, but I think Whedon's writing and just his necessary impulse to inject humor into everything seeped a little bit too much into Ultron, and I feel like if Ultron actually felt evil and actually said evil things as opposed to jokes every time, then he might have been a little bit more enjoyable. He's not bad, and it is a minor gripe. That being said, I did want a little bit more out of the villain that we get. I mean, his name's in the title, so obviously he's supposed to be a big deal. Also, another thing about Ultron is in the film, I felt like he's developed really quickly. At the beginning of the film, we're introduced to his character. He's kind of this broken down piece of armor, and this is in the trailers, this isn't a spoiler. He's kind of this broken down machine as part of the Ultron program that Tony Stark sets up to hopefully kind of protect the entire world, as it were. And then after his first confrontation with the Avengers, we see him a few minutes later, and he's this huge 8-foot tall, beautifully designed robot, and I felt like there really wasn't any progression of that. It just kind of happened. Now, you could say, oh, he's connected to the internet, he has access to all these things, so it would be instant, but I never really got that explained to me in the film, so it was kind of weird to just go from him being this broken down machine to all of a sudden, oh my gosh, it's the Terminator on some sort of illegal substance. It was just kind of jarring, if you ask me. My final gripe that I had with Ultron, and this is very minor, is I feel like the moments that were ending Phase 2 or were setting up for Phase 3 were kind of ham-fisted. And maybe there isn't really many ways you could go about doing this or adding this into the script. And maybe it's just because Marvel is so open about, what projects are coming and, what place these films are in, the cinematic universe that they've set up. But there were plenty of moments where I was just sitting there thinking to myself, okay, this scene really isn't going to impact the story I'm watching now. It's more about phase 3. Like, Thor has this whole subplot where he's seeing these visions and Scarlet Witch gives him a vision, and none of that stuff that he sees plays into the plot. It's all set up for Thor Ragnarok, which isn't out yet. And I feel like moments like that, at least for me, were distracting. Now, if you're a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and you like kind of the television aesthetic that Marvel has been doing with their films, then maybe it won't bother you. But me, I would consider myself more of a film purist. I think the most important thing that any film should do, if it's going to be a film, is to succeed on its own terms. Whether or not it's a sequel, any movie that you make should live and die by its own terms, meaning it needs to succeed as its own thing. And I felt like there were plenty of transitionary moments in Ultron that were just kind of distracting and took me out of the plot, which for the most part was very well done. With all that being said, guys, I really did enjoy Age of Ultron. I think if you're a fan of the original Avengers, anything superhero, if you just want a loud, fun movie that you can just laugh at and enjoy and not really take too seriously, then I would definitely say Age of Ultron is worth your time. It is around 2 hours and 21 minutes, and I would give it an 8 out of 10. There are things about it that I enjoy more than the first Avengers, and there are things about the first Avengers that I enjoy more than this. I would honestly say that I like them the same. They're honestly, at the end of the day, different kinds of movies. The first Avengers film was very much an event film, the type of film that, you know what, the whole point of it is just seeing them come together because we had never seen anything like that on the big screen. Well, now that we have that, this film is a lot more plot driven. It's a lot more about the script and what's happening as opposed to just seeing these characters together. So I applaud Whedon for going a different route as opposed to just trying to redo what the first Avengers was, because honestly, you're not going to be able to ever recapture that magic. Once you've seen the Avengers on screen, you're never going to get that excitement again of seeing these heroes on the screen, no matter how good the follow-ups are. So in a way, I feel like the fan service and the hype around this film is a type of hype that no matter how good the film was, it just wasn't going to deliver, because initially what made Avengers so great, the first one at least, was something that you really can't recapture with a sequel, if that makes sense. So anyway, guys, those are my thoughts on Age of Ultron. Comment below, let me know everything that you liked about Ultron, maybe some things you had issues with, maybe some hopes that you have for things that it's set up. Don't forget to follow Geeks Under Grace on Facebook, on Twitter, as well as myself. You can follow me on Twitter at JoshuaHale92. Thank you guys very much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button. And as always, keep going to the movies.